17 times. That's how many times LeBron James's neighbor Margaret Chen called Child Protective Services on his family between 2019 and 2021. 17 false reports claiming LeBron and Savannah were unfit parents who endangered their children's safety. The social workers were getting tired of investigating the same family over and over. LeBron was getting tired of explaining to his kids why strangers kept coming to their house asking invasive questions. But when LeBron finally discovered the real reason Margaret was making these calls, the truth didn't just shock him. It changed everything he thought he knew about hate, jealousy, and human nature. Have you ever had a neighbor who seemed determined to destroy your life? Have you ever wondered what drives someone to target innocent children with false accusations? Have you ever experienced the helpless feeling of being persecuted by the very system designed to protect families? This is the story of what happens when obsession meets desperation, when mental illness collides with fame, and when the truth behind someone's hatred is more heartbreaking than the hatred itself. It started in the summer of 2019 when LeBron moved his family into their dream home in Brentwood, California. The $23 million mansion was everything they had ever wanted: privacy, security, and a safe place for their children to grow up away from the constant scrutiny of public life. Margaret Chen lived 3 houses down in a modest $800,000 home that she had owned for over 40 years. At 67 years old, Margaret was a retired elementary school teacher who had never married and had no children of her own. She kept to herself, maintained a perfect garden, and had never caused problems for anyone in the neighborhood. For the first few months, Margaret seemed like the ideal neighbor. She would wave politely when she saw the James family, and she never complained about the occasional noise from their children playing in the backyard. LeBron and Savannah even considered inviting her over for dinner, thinking she might enjoy some company. But something changed in Margaret during the fall of 2019. The friendly waves stopped. The polite smiles disappeared. Instead, Margaret began watching the James family with an intensity that made everyone uncomfortable. She would stand at her living room window for hours, writing notes in a small notebook. She would take pictures of delivery trucks arriving at the James house. She would time how long the children played outside and document who came and went from the property. The first CPS call came on October 15, 2019. Margaret reported that she had seen Bronny, then 14, unsupervised, in the backyard after 9 p.m. on a school night. When the social worker investigated, she found that Bronny had been shooting baskets under the outdoor lights while his parents watched from the patio just 20 feet away. The second call came 2 weeks later. Margaret claimed she had witnessed screaming and crying from the house, suggesting domestic violence. The investigation revealed that the family had been watching a horror movie together and laughing at the scary parts. The third, fourth, and fifth calls followed the same pattern: dramatic accusations that fell apart under the slightest scrutiny. But Margaret wasn't deterred. If anything, she became more determined, more creative, more obsessed with finding something, anything, that would prove LeBron and Savannah were unfit parents. By the end of 2019, CPS had opened and closed 8 investigations into the James family. Every single one was found to be baseless. Every single one had originated from the same neighbor. And every single one was taking its toll on the children who couldn't understand why their family was under constant scrutiny. By 2020, Margaret Chen's obsession with the James family had consumed her entire life. She had installed security cameras pointed directly at their property. She kept detailed logs of every visitor, every delivery, every time the children played outside. Her notebook had grown into multiple journals filled with paranoid observations about LeBron's suspicious parenting. The CPS calls became more frequent and more bizarre. Margaret reported that LeBron was forcing his children to play basketball for hours. Child labor, she claimed. She called when Savannah took the kids to school late one morning, alleging educational neglect. She even reported that the family's pool parties were dangerous gatherings that put children at risk. Social worker Sarah Martinez had investigated 12 of the 17 calls personally. "Mr. James, I have to be honest," she told LeBron after the 15th false report. "This woman is clearly having some kind of mental health crisis. But legally, we have to investigate every report." The children were paying the highest price. 14-year-old Bronny started having anxiety attacks every time a white van pulled up to their house. 10-year-old Bryce would hide in his room when the government people came. 7-year-old Jury asked Savannah, "Mommy, are we bad kids? Why do they keep checking on us?" LeBron felt helpless. His fame meant that any legal action against Margaret would become a media circus, potentially making things worse for his family. The police said they couldn't arrest her for making reports to CPS, even false ones, because she claimed to believe them. "She's destroying my children's sense of safety in their own home," LeBron told Savannah one night after the 16th call. "I have to find out what's really driving this woman before she damages our kids permanently." That's when LeBron made the decision to hire a private investigator. He needed to understand Margaret Chen's past, her motivations, and most importantly, how to make this nightmare end. What the investigator discovered about Margaret's history would explain everything and change LeBron's anger into something much more complicated. The private investigator's report arrived on a Tuesday morning in March 2021. 3 pages that would change everything LeBron thought he knew about his tormentor. Margaret Chen wasn't a vindictive neighbor. She wasn't racist. She wasn't jealous of LeBron's success. She was a woman trapped in a 40-year-old nightmare that LeBron's family had unknowingly triggered. In 1981, Margaret had been engaged to her college sweetheart, David Park. They had planned a summer wedding and had already picked out names for their future children. But 3 months before their wedding, David died in a car accident caused by a drunk driver. Margaret was 8 weeks pregnant at the time. The grief and shock caused her to miscarry their baby. In one devastating week, Margaret lost both her fiancé and their unborn child. She never recovered. She never dated again. She never had the family she had dreamed of for her entire life. For 40 years, Margaret had lived alone with her pain, teaching other people's children, watching other people's families, wondering what her life might have been if David hadn't died that night. When LeBron's family moved in with their 3 healthy, happy children roughly the same age as her own kids would have been, something snapped in Margaret's grieving mind. She didn't see the James family as neighbors. She saw them as the life that had been stolen from her. The CPS calls weren't about hurting LeBron's children. In Margaret's damaged psychology, she was trying to save them from parents she believed didn't deserve the blessing of family that she had been denied. "She's not evil," the investigator's report concluded. "She's mentally ill, trapped in unresolved grief, and your family's happiness has become a trigger for her trauma." LeBron sat in his study, reading the report over and over. His anger slowly transformed into something he hadn't expected: compassion. Margaret Chen wasn't his enemy. She was a broken woman who needed help, not punishment. On a quiet Tuesday evening in March 2021, LeBron James knocked on Margaret Chen's door. She answered expecting police, lawyers, or court papers. Instead, she found LeBron standing alone on her porch, holding a small bouquet of flowers and wearing the gentlest expression she had seen in years. "Mrs. Chen," LeBron said softly, "I know about David. I know about the baby you lost. I know why you've been calling CPS on my family." Margaret's face crumpled. For the first time in 40 years, someone understood her pain instead of judging her actions. She began crying. Not the bitter tears of anger, but the cleansing tears of someone finally being seen. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to hurt your children. I just miss my family so much. Seeing your happiness every day reminds me of everything I lost." LeBron stepped forward. "Mrs. Chen, you don't need to apologize to me. You need help, and I want to help you get it." Over the next hour, LeBron sat in Margaret's living room, a shrine to the life she never had, filled with baby clothes she'd never given away and wedding photos of David. He listened as she told him about 4 decades of loneliness, grief, and mental health struggles she'd been too proud to address. "I have a proposal," LeBron said finally. "Instead of calling CPS, what if you called me? What if when you're feeling overwhelmed by grief, you came over for dinner? What if instead of watching my family from a distance, you became part of it?" 6 months later, Margaret Chen was babysitting Jury while LeBron and Savannah went to dinner. She had started therapy, joined a grief support group, and found purpose in helping other families in the neighborhood. The 17th CPS call never came. Instead, Margaret became the grandmother LeBron's children had never had, and LeBron's family became the healing Margaret had needed for 40 years. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who are hurting the most themselves. And sometimes the most powerful response to someone's pain isn't punishment, it's compassion.